So let me ask you a question. Do you think the internet is weightless? Well, most people do. After all, we call it the cloud. Our photos on the cloud, our email is in the cloud, our files are on the cloud, our AI conversations are on the cloud. Everything sounds virtual, digital, weightless, almost magical. But here's the reality. The internet isn't weightless. It's one of the heaviest things humanity has ever built. Because the internet isn't floating around in some invisible cloud. It's built on power stations, substations, fiber networks, cooling systems, backup generators, concrete, steel, water infrastructure, and millions upon millions of servers. The internet is physical, painfully physical. And every time you ask AI a question, every time you watch a YouTube video, every time you stream Netflix, every time you upload a photo, you are asking that infrastructure to do work, real work, which means consuming real resources, electricity, water, land, materials. And here's where things start getting uncomfortable, because humanity needs resources too. And now, AI has entered the picture. Every government wants AI. Every hyperscaler wants AI. Every company wants AI. Every country wants AI leadership. And that means something very simple. More compute, more data centers, more power, more cooling, more infrastructure. So here's the scary part. We are starting to compete with our own digital infrastructure for some of the most important resources on Earth. Power, water, land, grid capacity. And despite those constraints, data centers are still being built. They are still getting bigger, still becoming more power hungry, still becoming more strategically important. Because nobody wants less AI. Nobody wants slower internet. Nobody wants fewer cloud services. Nobody wants less computing power. Quite the opposite. We want more. We want more AI, more streaming, more connectivity, more digital everything. If we refuse to stop consuming, eventually we may be forced to ask whether everything should keep expanding on Earth. And if we cannot keep expanding everything on Earth forever, eventually we are forced to look up. Not because space is easy, but because Earth is becoming expensive. Expensive in power and water and land. Expensive in political permission. Which brings me to one of the most controversial ideas in modern infrastructure. Data centers in space. And before you dismiss the idea completely, let me give you a quick glimpse of why people are even talking about this. Imagine a data center that never experiences rain, never experiences storms, never experiences floods, never competes with a city for land, and never competes with a farmer for water, and has access to sunlight almost all the time. Well, suddenly, the idea starts to sound a little less ridiculous. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying orbital data centers are easy. They're not. The engineering challenges are enormous. The economics are brutal. And there are still plenty of reasons this idea may never happen. And if you are a data center engineer, this is probably the moment where you start shouting at the screen. Space? Really? Have you completely lost your mind? Good, because that's exactly what I thought. For the first time, I found myself asking a different question. Not, why would anyone build a data center in space? But, what happens if one day we have no choice? And that's a question that sent me down this rabbit hole. And now I need to confess something. I thought this idea was totally, horrendously ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Like most data center professionals, I assumed orbital data centers were one of those futuristic concepts that sound impressive in a headline but collapse the moment an engineer opens a spreadsheet. In fact, I started researching this topic with a very specific goal. I wanted to prove that this was utter nonsense. I wanted to prove that it was impractical, uneconomic, unnecessary, and fundamentally stupid. But then something strange happened. The deeper I went, the harder it became to dismiss. Because I slowly started to realize that orbital data centers may not be an engineering impossibility. I know, crazy, right? They are certainly difficult. Radiation is difficult. Launch is difficult. Networking is difficult. Maintenance is almost impossible. Thermal management is difficult. Economics is difficult. But difficult is not the same as impossible. And the biggest constraint may not even be the engineering. The biggest constraint may very well be economics. And even the economics are changing faster than many people realize. Launch costs are falling. Satellite manufacturing is improving. The space economy is growing. And solar energy in orbit is abundant. Meanwhile, data centers on Earth are becoming more expensive, more contested, more resource intensive. Which is how my attempt to debunk orbital computing became a 2-volume research project spanning more than 1,000 pages. How crazy is that? Not because I think I have all the answers. I absolutely do not. But because I think this conversation needs to happen. Because this conversation will either become part of the roadmap that eventually moves some computing infrastructure beyond Earth, or it will help us finally prove why the idea can never work. Either outcome is valuable. So have a look at the links in the description. That's where I've put together the research, the engineering concepts, the economic arguments, the models, and the challenges. And this video is only the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to keep pulling on this thread. We're going to explore the engineering, the economics, the physics, the companies, the obstacles, and the uncomfortable questions that come with moving critical infrastructure beyond Earth. By the end of this series, one of 2 things will happen. We'll discover together that orbital data centers are an inevitable part of our future, or we'll discover why they'll never work. Either way, we're going to follow the evidence wherever it leads. So subscribe, hit the notification bell, and join me on this journey, because I'd love to have you as part of this conversation. And the next video continues exactly where this one leaves off. Why we may not have a choice but to take the world's data centers extraterrestrial.